I have an extra special video for you today, so if you are a fan of cozy books, stay tuned. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life. Today I am here for an extra special video that I am doing with my good friend Rebecca from Rebecca at Wilson Hill, and we are here to talk about our Cozy Reader Book Club. If you have been watching my videos, you've probably heard me mention my book club in some of my TBRs and monthly wrap-up videos. And when I mention my book club, the book club I'm talking about is the Cozy Reader Book Club. The Cozy Reader Book Club is an online book club that Rebecca and I started at the beginning of this year, and anyone can join. So if you are interested in joining a book club, then stay tuned for all of the details that Rebecca and I are going to share and find out a little bit more about what we mean when we say cozy books and some of the cozy books we have planned to read in the upcoming months. Enjoy! Hi everyone, I'm Jen from At Jen's Reading Life.
And I'm Rebecca from Rebecca of Wilson Hill.
And we're here today to chat a little bit about the Cozy Reader Book Club. Rebecca and I met, we think through Instagram, we think that's how we met, and we had the opportunity to co-lead a book club together when we discovered that there was some interest in doing that, in reading cozy books together, and that was sort of how the club started.
So what we wanted to do in this video is share a little bit about ourselves and kind of how we would define cozy, and then to also share a bit about the book club and where we are with that in this year. And so through the process of figuring out kind of what we would determine as cozy, what we really try to do in this book club is to do our best to mitigate any triggers that people might find in reading, anything that they might find upsetting. And of course, we can't, know what everyone is triggered by and possibly upset by, but we do try really hard to make our book selections cozy. And so one of the things we wanted to share is, as far as we define cozy, is to share what books we would kind of call as cozy. So Jen, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or we can just go into sharing our cozy books.
No, I think that's a perfect description of it. And yes, I think hopefully people can get a good idea of what we both define as cozy by the types of cozy books we have picked to share today.
So what we'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and interview Jen and have her share about her cozy books, and that will be on my channel. And then we'll get to the place where Jen's going to be asking me about my cozy books, and that part of the video will be on her channel. And so you'll want to be sure to go to both of our channels to get a full picture of kind of how each of us defines cozy when it comes to reading.
Yes.
So
and the links to our channels will be in the description box of each video.
Yes. And we'll also be sure that we're also sharing about this on Instagram. So if you ever have questions or can't find it, you can always send either of us a message at either of those places.
So we are going to dive into some of Rebecca's favorite cozy reads, and we've got these broken up into a few different categories. So Rebecca, why don't you start with a memoir that you really loved and talk us through why this is a cozy read for you?
Okay, so I have chosen The Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady by Edith Holden. This was originally written in 1906, but kind of laid fallow for almost 70 years, well, over 70 years, and was published in the 1970s. And this book, I'll open it up. So it is divided by the different months in the year. So I'll open it to June since that's where we are. It has charming illustrations. It has poems. It's written, actually, I hope it focuses, in her own handwriting style. So it's been kind kind of copied, and then it has the daily journal. And so I love reading each day what was happening in her community in Warwickshire, England. She also travels to Scotland, and it is illustrated for the season of the year. And it's just so immersive when you read it. You just feel like you are right there with this woman, 120 years ago, experiencing everything out in nature. It has encouraged me to do my own kind of nature journaling and nature study. I mean, her illustrations are just so beautiful. And so when I think about a memoir that I'm reading that makes me feel at peace and very calm and sort of brought back to like, okay, well, what is actually important, which is, what's going on in our world in nature. I just think of this book. So it's just lovely to just have out on the coffee table. And then in the morning, as I'm reading sort of my nonfiction works, I will pick this up and just read it. And it has her the linotype or whatever it's called of the
Mm-hmm.
photo of her on the back. It's just really a peaceful, lovely, calming read. So not, high literature, a lot of text, plot driven anything. It's just her daily diary and monthly notes. And I love it so much. There's actually a couple others that they've printed of hers that they found after this one. And so it just has my heart, I guess. So that's the
Yes.
memoir one I would choose.
I know. I just saw that my mom actually has a copy of that and I'm going to steal it and
Yeah,
read
right. Yeah.
it. But I love that that's like the perfect kind of book. Like you said, you can just sort of like pick it up, read a few pages, like kind of read it throughout the year. It's not something that you have to like sit down and read cover to cover,
Right.
and
Right.
you can
It's
just
very,
dip in and out of it.
very seasonal. And I
Hmm.
mean, it really is like it has like, I don't know, like for January, it has like, browns and,
Hmm.
showing the birds. And it's just, I just love it for like reminding me of like, this is about the season and not about next, because I do
Right.
think we live in that culture of like always anticipating instead of
Of
just
course.
sitting where we
Yeah.
are. So,
Yeah. And always like doing, going, right?
right,
Rather than to just sit and be sort of quiet in nature. I love that.
right,
Yeah,
right, right.
absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, so next up, um, cozy mysteries. I'd love to hear what cozy mystery means to you and maybe what an example of a cozy mystery is. I've shared on my channel what I feel is a cozy mystery or what works for me, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
Great. So I would choose the Shady Hollow series. This is the first in a series. This one is just by the name of the series title. There are 4 books currently published. The 5th one is coming out July 9th, which is called Summer's End. They are, again, with that idea of nature, they are seasonal, some of them. So, like, some of them are perfect for reading in the fall. She's written some, or they've written some novellas for Christmas and for Halloween. So you can find themed ones. I would
Mhm.
recommend starting with this one. You don't want to like move. Sometimes you can kind of pop in wherever. You do want to read them in order. This is actually written by 2 women. I know it says it's by Juno Black, but it's actually Jocelyn Cole and Sharon Nagel, I think is how you pronounce her name. 2 women that have written this series. And this consists of anthropomorphized animals. So there are no humans in this. It is a community of animals that act human. And so they have their own little town, their own little village, their own little businesses. And we follow Vera Vixen, who is a reporter. And she is dating a police officer in town who's a bear. And I think what makes it cozy, because I know it sounds a little kitschy to have it like be like animals, and I know that can turn some people off. But when I think of a cozy mystery, I think about my 14-year-old daughter and what mystery would I want to be able to hand off to her where it's wholesome. Like I said, Vera is dating this police officer. Their relationship is completely wholesome. They're courting. It doesn't ever go any further than that. You're not, I've never worried about like, is this going to go to a place that I'm not ready for, my daughter to read? And really for me, I'm not a big like spicy kind of reader, right? I don't, that's not just not my jam. And so it is, to me, it's very cozy. These animals, there are murders, obviously. And again, it is happening, as you had mentioned, off page. But I just love how you feel like you really are part of this little town. You really do have to kind of think through like the clues and figuring out, are you intentionally being led in that direction or is it in a different direction? And it just to me is just a very go under a blanket, read this with your cup of tea, maybe in front of a fire for some of the fall reads, and just really the epitome of comfy, cozy books. And I do have the one coming up in July on pre-order when Barnes and Noble had their 25% off pre-order sale. I made sure to order it, and so I do love this cute little series. So it is.
I keep hearing about that one.
Yeah,
And
have you heard about it?
oh yes, I have. I keep seeing it everywhere and I'm like, I really need to give that one a try.
It's cute. You should be able to find it in the library. It's not hard to
Yep.
find, and just a
Hmm.
cute little read. So
Yeah. Lovely. Okay, and then moving on to vintage, which vintage can mean, a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think both Rebecca and I really enjoy uh, reading books, as she said, from the yesteryears,
right, right.
for lack of a better word. So things that weren't written necessarily recently, and they sort of evoke a specific period of time, I feel like. And Rebecca, what's a cozy vintage read that you'd like to share?
So I have Elizabeth Gouge's A Scent of Water. I actually have all of Elizabeth Gouge's novels, both for adults and middle grade, juvenile, which again, anybody could read them. But I love Elizabeth Gouge. If somebody would pinpoint me and say, who's your favorite author? I would choose her. For so many reasons that we don't have enough time today to dive into. But I chose Scent of Water because this was the first of her books that I read and really fell in love with her style. And for me, you've got the slice of life in a village. You've got the character who comes from like a city life who's older, right? So like I can relate obviously to an older protagonist than maybe a younger one sometimes. And she comes to this village to collect her inheritance, which happens to be a property with a cottage on it. And for me, the description of the cottage, which I know sounds silly that would be the thing that really grabbed my heart, but it was just being able to picture this cottage in England that this woman had inherited. Just it was described so lovely and comforting and like a safe place. And so some of the things I do love about Elizabeth Gouge is her mystical happenstance. And so more than magical realism, it's a myth. Something happens that's very mystical, which again, I think a lot of female writers in the early 1900s utilized that writing style, but I just think she does it in such a beautiful way. She's always got a spiritual thread that kind of moves through her books. She's got whimsy sprinkled throughout. Sometimes in her books, you have the perspective from the family dog, for instance. So things that aren't typically done, I don't think anymore, are all throughout her books, and I love it so much. We usually have the character arc of someone who who is in the process of needing redemption and hopefully getting redemption. But then she also has like it's like character and plot driven both, where you're kind of driven by, well, what's happening here? And also watching the characters kind of develop through their arc. And so, if you haven't read Elizabeth Gooch, I would highly recommend it. But it is the book that I would pick for, if it was like one vintage book that I had to read the rest of my life, this would be the book I would choose.
Well, you sold me a cottage description of the cottage because, I think that's what I said for my vintage pick as well. So I think we were simpatico in our
Right.
vintage book. And I've
Right.
only read one Elizabeth Goudge, but I have like 5 or 6 of hers on my shelf. I'm not sure if I have that one, but now I have to go check because I
Yeah.
definitely want to read that one. That sounds amazing.
And it'll be at the library too, I think, too.
Hopefully,
So that's
although
the
it's
thing. I have this
yeah.
beautiful copy, but when I'm reading it, I'm getting it from the library. It
Well, you
smells.
don't want to mess up your copy, right?
Yeah, right. Silly.
Okay, and then for our next category, we have like middle grade because I mean, middle grade is so often cozy. Middle grade authors, I feel like, are the one sort of genre where they can take even subject matter that could be potentially very difficult and they write about it in a way that's very palatable because they're writing for children. And I think as an adult, that can often be a good way of reading about subjects that maybe you don't want to read about if they are written for adults, but written for children. It makes it much, I'm not going to say cozy because not every middle grade book is cozy, but makes it a much softer read. But let's chat about what's a middle grade book that you find to be cozy.
So I chose The Wind in the Willows, which I think most people know the plot too. But one of the things that I think is most important about a middle grade cozy read is the experience of it, right? So for me, we do a lot of middle grades as read alouds in my family. Um, and so there's multiple ways to that. You can listen to that book, right? So listening to audiobooks is something that we do as a family, but then also reading this out loud to my kids. I had a voice for rat and badger and mole and toad, each of my different voices, and my kids still 10 years later will talk like I did for Ratty. And it becomes part of our family culture. And so I think, I love the story. There are some intriguing parts to this with, like, for instance, the god Pan, the Greek god Pan is like in here, which I think is surprising to most people. But so there's a lot of intriguing parts to it. But for me, it's the experience. With your middle grade choice, we also listen to that as a family. And the other thing that I love about middle grades, a good middle grade cozy choice also comes with a movie, in my opinion. You listen to the book, you develop an affinity for the characters, and then you critically watch the movie and you say, did this stay true to the book? Did this deviate from the book? Do I like the movie better than the book, right? Which could happen.
Mhm.
It didn't happen for this one though. So I think having the experience where you're pulling all of that in is phenomenal. So anyway, that
Yes.
is the book that I chose.
Wind in the Willows.
Yes,
Fantastic book.
yes,
Fantastic
I
book.
should
Yeah,
say
I just
fantastic.
reread it and then in the winter I read because there's I forget the author who has done some sort of like sequels to it and he actually did a really lovely job of sort of keeping with the same tone of The Wind in the Willows and I really enjoyed that too. And I think there's 2 or 3 that he's written. But Wind in the Willows is actually it's kind of funny because I love that you picked Shady Hollow, which is also sort of anthropomorphized animals, and The Wind in the
Right,
Willows.
right.
I think that kind of thing, you know, anthropomorphizing well, let me try that again. The anthropomorphization of animals is something that tends to make a book cozy, right? Even
Yeah,
if we're just getting like the inner thoughts of, say, a cat or something like that, I think those things add to the coziness of a read.
true,
Um,
true.
yeah.
I agree.
So, okay, and let's end on what you would consider to be a modern cozy read. So something, say, written in the past 20 or 30 years. And what book do you have to share with us from that category?
Right. So this was actually published last year, so it's really modern.
That's very modern.
And that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Heather Fawcett is a Canadian writer. I love everything else that she's written that I've tried, middle grade and adult. This is an adult fantasy novel, which I love adult fantasy. But I do really prefer like a more strictly fantasy. I know we seem to be moving into this realm of adding in romance and all kinds of other pieces into our fantasy. I really do love either a cozy fantasy or a high fantasy um, novel that doesn't have a lot of romance. So this has a little bit of romance. It has a bit of a cold setting. It has a bit of the academia setting. It has the Fae folk in it as well. It has a bit of village life. So it has all of these different pieces in it. And for me, so we have the main character, who's obviously Emily Wilde. She really presents as neurodiverse in her interactions and dealings with people. And her fellow academic professor, who's actually really technically her boss, joins her out in the field as she is searching on information about the Fae in the northern colder region. So again, Heather Fawcett being Canadian, you can most of the time find her in a cold setting if she's writing something, which I love. I love cold and snow and all of that. So that to me also is very cozy, right? Like just wrapping up in front of the fire, reading a book that's in a cold setting. And so when Emily Wilde's professor, joins her out in the field, he's able to really charm people to get kind of the information that she's looking for as she is trying to develop this encyclopedia of all these different kind of fae folk that are in the area. She's got a dog by her side, which again is, I guess we're realizing most of my choices have animals in them in some way. But this is a series. 2 books have been published. The third one, I think, will be coming out early next year. So this is the first book that was originally going to be part of a trilogy, I think, but it just was so popular and has become so well loved that I think Heather Fawcett has bigger plans to make this a series. And so I'm excited to just continue to dive into Emily Wilde and her adventures. And again, with kind of having that cozy safety net of knowing that there's no love triangle, there's no spice. It's just a fantasy novel where we follow somebody who is an academic trying to gather information and solve some mysteries along the way.
I love that. I'm not a huge fantasy reader. I mean, I do read them on occasion. I'm not a fan of like, let's go on a journey and never get anywhere. Like that's not the fantasy for me. But that one actually sounds really good. Like, and I love academia, books set in academia. So that sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, I love it. And I actually also think that I like the second one better than the first one. And so I think that's a good sign too of like,
Sure.
okay, now we're like really, diving into this and getting to know the characters and I'm feeling more attached and
Right.
so
Well, oftentimes, especially in fantasy, where there's got to be world building at the beginning in that first
yes.
book. So then
Yes.
oftentimes, the impetus for the story gets going in the subsequent books. So
Yeah.
that, kind of ratchets up the interest in them. So that's good to know. You want a series to get better as it goes along and not worse.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
Fantastic. I love all those cozy reads, and I think I've added them all to my TBR. So
Yeah.
thanks for that.
Right. I did the same with yours too, especially since you had said some of them were good audiobooks. I have them
Yes.
on audiobook Libby Hold. So
Right. I know. I might have to check out that Shady Hollow and see if it's on audio, because that sounds like a lovely way maybe to read that one.
yeah. 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 I haven't listened to that one. I'm sure it's great if they have it. So
Right. So now that we have shared some of our favorite cozy reads and hopefully helped you to understand what we consider to be cozy reads and the types of books that we might choose for the book club, but the book club isn't just the two of us. It is all of our members, and we really value everybody's input. And we think it's important to choose books for a wide level of interest. And so to do that, we are going to periodically send out a Google form. We have already done it when we set up the book club, and we will be doing it again very shortly, to ask members to give us recommendations for books that they would like to read for the club. And we keep a running list of all of those. And then we choose books based on all of the members' input, which I think is really important, that it's not just our club. The club is for everybody. And we want everybody to feel like they have a voice in the club as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we meet every third Saturday of the month. And, once we get someone's email information, we make sure that we're sending in advance the Google Meet link. We find that Google Meet is the best way for everyone to be able to access it easily. And so we send out that link. And, we really try to keep this, as Jen said, this is not just our book club. This is whoever wants to join and be a part of it, it's their book club. So not only are we about getting input from everyone in the club, but also really wanting to make sure that if we're spending our time reading cozy books, we're also making the actual virtual book club experience cozy as well. And so that means really trying to meet everybody where they are and making sure everybody's comfortable. So, we would really want anyone to join who, whether you've read the book or not, maybe you haven't finished it and you're okay with hearing spoilers and you want to hear, be part of the discussion. Maybe you don't want to be a part of the discussion, but you just want to listen to what people say. And so you really want to keep your camera off, or maybe you're traveling and you can only put your comments in the chat and you're not able to talk. We just really want this to be a discussion format, and kind of keep it low key. We don't call on people to talk. If you're not comfortable, you don't have to. If you have questions about it, we would welcome that. I know I often have questions that I like to ask to try to see, did I understand that correctly? Was my take on that what everybody else's was? And so just really keeping it comfy, cozy, not only in the book choices, but also in just the whole experience. Low key, no pressure, just kind of fun, 1 hour a month, getting together and sharing about a book that we've read together.
Yes, absolutely. I think, we want everybody to feel welcome and comfortable in however they want to participate in the group. So, and if you can't, if you can only come once or twice a year, come once or twice a year. That is absolutely fine. You don't have to make it to every month. Like you said, this should be a book club that you make it what works best for you. So,
right. And also, we don't record it or post it anywhere. It's just, again, just that 1 hour. And some of the people that are in the club will say like, oh, I really want to join, but I have a conflict. And so, people, I think if they're not able to make it, they miss it, especially if you've put in the time for the book. And so we want to be here also as a community, to just kind of, share life together a little bit too. So anyway, we wanted to share a little bit about our choices that we have for the remainder of the year. And we can share a little bit more about, we've made one little slight alteration, so we'll get into that. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So our June read, which you should be seeing this video in advance of that, is Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. Is it backwards for you?
Nope. It is correct. It is the correct way for me.
Interesting. Okay. So this book is a very quiet book. Something that I love about Wendell Berry is that as a male, he has written this book from a female perspective. I know one of the things that I love the most about this is that we are meeting Hannah near the end of her life. And it feels very much like a memoir. She's kind of turning around and looking behind her of what has brought her to that point. And she shares with us, the reader, what her life has been like and how she's ended up being in this situation. And for me, one of the things that makes it cozy is we start out at the beginning knowing that we're at the end of her life, knowing who she was married to and kind of some of the things she's gone through in her life, and then she starts into her childhood. And so in some ways we kind of get some spoilers at the beginning, but for me, that's what makes it feel cozy, is that there's not this angst of like, oh, what's gonna happen
Mm-hmm.
here at the beginning. I already know that there are things that are going to happen to Hannah, and that she's come to peace with them. And so that's one of the reasons why I would consider this cozy. But I love Wendell Berry's writing, and again, I think it's a very quiet book. There's not like this huge plot driving you to turn the page. It's very much about Hannah and her sharing her perspective and her life, and feels very historical fiction-esque, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's June's book, which again, third Saturday in June will be when we'll be
Mm-hmm.
discussing this.
Yes.
So I'll go
I'm
ahead.
very excited. I haven't read it yet, and I'm going to start it today, actually. So
Yeah, I'm halfway through,
nice.
but it's a reread for me. So,
Right.
but
It's not a huge book either. So
no,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
not. It's not.
it's fairly slim.
Um, so knowing that you haven't read it, hopefully I haven't given away too much. Um,
No, that's great.
So, and then for July, we have Susanna Kearsley's The Firebird. If you haven't read Susanna Kearsley, she is a dual timeline, multiple point of view writer who has characters in the present. And then the best part, I think, is the historical fiction pieces where we kind of see that second point of view, and it's in another time period in history. It's a thick book, but I have found her books to be pretty fast, and fairly easy to read and get through. I don't think you really get bogged down because there is this plot that's driving you along.
Mm-hmm.
Many of her books revolve around the Jacobite uprising, I think is the right word for it. So based in Scotland, and so I think this one does as well. I do think there is a Russian history component to this also. This is the second book in a series, but you don't need to read the first book in order to read this one. So this is one where the order isn't, at least for the first two, is not important. So I have not read this one. I have read a few of Susanna Kearsley's. I know you have as well, Jen.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks like a perfect hot July book from the cover. So we'll see.
Yes. Firebird sounds good for July, right?
Yes, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I also haven't read that one, but I have read some other Susanna Kearsley's. So,
Yeah. So,
mm-hmm.
okay,
Yes.
great. So we can
Okay.
move into the next one.
All right. So then for August, this book we were actually going to read over August and September, but we have rethought things because this book is one that I think, even though it's got a fairly hefty page count, it reads very quickly. And I personally know this is going to be a reread for me, and I'm going to have a hard time putting it down. So that book is The Shell Seekers by Rosamund Pilcher.
I'll hold up mine
And
too.
yes. So she's got that beautiful. I have that same edition, but in a very small paperback, and my old eyes need this bigger size to read now. But in the Shell Seekers, this is another family saga. And interestingly enough, I think similar to Hannah Coulter, we are starting with a woman towards the end of her life looking back and reflecting on her life sort of from the beginning to where she is now. So we follow Penelope Keeling and her father. She has a painting of her father's. He was a famous artist, and he has this painting called The Shell Seekers, which she owns. And come to find out that his painting is actually now worth a lot of money. And her children come in and they each have their own ideas of what Penelope should do with this painting. And as a result of sort of this kind of conflict going on at the end of her life, it causes her to reflect back over the course of her entire life. So you get to see this. It's set in Cornwall, where many of Rosamund Pilcher's novels are set. And I think it is the perfect immersive summer read, perfect for August. And I'm so excited. It's been quite a few years since I read this, and I cannot wait to get back into it. So this is going to be for August. So we will be discussing this on the third Saturday of August. And then for September, we are actually going to send out a poll to all of the members later this month. So if you want to join the club, please do so. And then you can partake of that poll and help us choose which book we are going to read for September, since we don't currently have a book picked for that. And we'll also be asking for some input for books to read for next year as well.
And also to jump in, since
Sure.
Firebird and Shell Seekers are pretty thick, we've said
Yes.
September's book will be a thinner read, I think.
Yes.
So.
We'll have some sort of little kind of, I don't want to say palate cleanser, but just something a little bit shorter that's,
Right.
doesn't feel like such a chunky, because October's book is also a bit chunky. And that is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. There we go. So
Your
we're going to
cover is
this is sort of,
beautiful.
yeah, we're going to sort of piggyback on, because Victober happens in October, and this is a Victorian novel. So if you want to participate in Victober, you can do that along with us and we can all discuss it. So The Woman in White, I think, is considered to be one of the first detective novels. I think The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins might be actually the first detective novel, or what is considered to be the first. And in this, we follow this young man, and he, I think, what's his name? Walter Hartwright. And he comes across this woman in white. She seems to be somewhat in distress. He's on the road and comes across her, and then they sort of have an interaction. And then he comes to find out that there's a woman missing from a nearby asylum. And is it the woman in white? Is it somebody else? And he is on his way to, I think he's going to be teaching some, older children who live in a nearby, manor house. And anyway, the story progresses from there, and he sort of gets involved in finding this woman or something like that. I don't know, because I haven't read it, and I've wanted to read this for so long.
Me
So
too.
I'm really looking forward to this one.
And I love too the humor that Wilkie Collins has, because in the Moonstone, you've read
Mhm.
the Moonstone. Have you read the
No, I
Moonstone?
haven't read the only Wilkie Collins I've read is No Name, which I really enjoyed. So yeah,
I just think he's funny. Like
he
there's
is.
there's humor in this that I'm hoping he also has in here. Because when I was
Mhm.
reading the Moonstone, it was like just it almost, it's like Three Stooges kind of basement of the, it's just he's just is very clever and funny. And
Right.
I've also wanted to read this, and so I'm happy that we're
Yes,
gonna get to it, and we have accountability for getting
we
through it.
do. We do. So that will be a fun October read.
Mhm.
And then for November, we are going to sort of keep with the sort of mystery novel theme we have going at the end of this year. And we are going to read They Found Him Dead by Georgette Hare. Hey, we have
You're
the
the
same
same
edition.
copy. Finally.
I love these. I love these
Yeah,
editions.
me
I found this
too.
at a secondhand bookstore near me. So
Too. Me
this
too.
was such a good find. I love Georgette Hare. She is most well known for her Regency romances,
Hmm.
but she also wrote quite a few detective novels. Some are part of a series, which this one is. This is part of the, who are they? Does it say on here? Of course not. Oh, Hannah Side, and there is one other. I can't think of his name. Anyway, so Superintendent Hannahside, I think, is our main detective in this novel. I don't think you need to read the series in any particular order. I've read a couple of them, and they really stand alone as sort of like Agatha Christie. And if you like Agatha Christie and that sort of classic British crime novel, then Georgette Hare definitely falls into that category. And in this one, we follow, it's the morning after wealthy Silas Kane's 60th birthday party. And it brings to light this party a number of controversies in the family. And then Kane is found dead at the foot of the cliff. They think it's an accident at first, but then his nephew and heir is also found dead. And then potentially the life of a third heir to this family fortune is also has his life in danger. So clearly somebody needs to come in and find out what's going on here. So sounds fantastic. And I love a good classic British crime novel, which I think tend to be on the cozier side for mystery novels. There's nothing ever really graphic about them. They may not be like what we would consider traditionally cozy, but I think they still fall into that cozy category.
I agree. I've read some of her, at least one of her Regency romances, and just really enjoy the creativity that she has in kind of developing, you know, what's going on. And so I'm excited to read her mystery.
Yeah.
And I agree on the coziness level of it. You know, the British ones, usually it's, you know, we're not looking at like thriller, horror, on page, graphic, anything.
Right.
And I think a murder mystery is a great November read.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
like reading seasonally, and this is a perfect season choice.
Yes, for sure. Curl up with your favorite hot beverage and dive into a mystery novel in November.
Right. So we don't have a choice for December. So that will be part of that Google form poll that Jen has mentioned that we'll be sending out so that we can get input on choosing December's book and then moving into horrors 2025.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's
I can't even believe it's June of 2024. So
no. There's that saying, the days are long and the years are short. And
they
it is
are.
true.
It's so true. So, so true. So I think really the only last thing that we need to do is to let you all know how you can join the Cozy Reader Book Club. And there are a few different ways you can do that. First of all, you can leave a comment on this video. You can also send an email to Rebecca or myself and let us know that you would like to join, and we will leave our information in the description box below. You can also head over to both of our Instagram accounts, and again, we will have those listed in the description box. And we do have a pinned post about the Cozy Reader Book Club, which we will need to update, and we will be doing that very soon. But you can always send us a DM through Instagram as well. So many ways to get a hold of us and let us know that you are interested, and we would love for you to join us. The more the merrier, and we love people who love to talk about books.
Yep, I agree. The more the merrier, for sure.
And that is it for the Cozy Reader Book Club discussion. I hope you enjoyed listening to Rebecca and I talk about some of our cozy books. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about Rebecca, and please go over and subscribe to her channel. I will have the link in the description box below. I hope at least one of the books that we mentioned as our upcoming reads sound interesting to you, and we would love to have you join us. As we said, this is a very no pressure book club. You can come even if you haven't finished the book. You can come even if you don't want to have your camera on. This should feel as cozy and comfortable to you as sitting in your own home, drinking a cup of tea, and talking about a book with your closest friends. Thank you so much for watching. If you could give this video a like and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, it really does help out my channel and helps me to grow. And I know Rebecca would like you to do the same over on her channel. Thank you so much for watching, for being here, for commenting. I'd love to hear what some of your favorite cozy books are in the comments down below, so please share those. And I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye!